Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Whispers Estate here in Mitchell, Indiana. We are doing our second podcast tonight. As promised, we're going to try to do at least once a month. Going to try to do at least one of these a month. I have what I would call bad news tonight, and then I have some good news. And being one of those people that like to go with the bad news first, the bad news, of course, is, and I think I've told most of you people this already via text, email, and posting on our website and our YouTube and Facebook, I should say, we are not able to go out live tonight. The plan was to go out live tonight, but I have bought some new equipment, and the learning curve with that equipment is just, my goodness, it's turned into somewhat of a struggle. So therefore, tonight's podcast will be pre-recorded. I will do my very best to get that posted tonight, hopefully before 11 o'clock on both our Facebook page and our YouTube page and our website. If you visit our new website, it's the same web address, www.whispersestate.com. But we have redone the website thanks to the work and brilliance of my good buddy Brad Martin, who spent a lot of time refurbishing that thing. It's so much more user-friendly. You can please visit that at any time. Now, the good news, of course, and there is good news, is tonight I've been looking forward to having these three people on the second podcast with me for some time now. I have Scott and Jolynn Wade and their friend Missy Qualkenbush, and I got that name right?
Sure
Okay,
did.
that's a tough one, even for a school teacher like me. I got that pronunciation accurate. Scott and I bumped into each other. It's been a little bit over a year ago here in downtown Mitchell at the local Ruler grocery store, about the only place in town where I think you can go and do some real shopping. And somehow or another, we ended up talking to each other, and I shared with him that I, as Rich Ballard, was the new owner of the Whispers Estate, and he told me that as Scott Wade, he had a history with the house, and goes all the way back to the original owner, Jared Marshall. And I certainly wanted the opportunity to talk more with Scott and his wife Jolynn, and then they shared with me that Missy had been involved in those early years of the house opening originally as a paranormal attraction. So Scott, the girls told me that you had to go first, so usually it's ladies first, but I guess tonight we're going to shirk that typical chivalric rule here. And Scott, the agreement, of course, with all of you, that I'd go around and ask each of you pretty much the same question here in this first round, and then we will kind of go more organic as we move forward. But Scott, welcome tonight. And the first thing I would like to ask you, because you can share with our listeners, is how did you as an individual get interested initially in the paranormal?
I was always interested, and about 18 years ago, my wife had started going with another friend of ours, and she came home telling me about meetings, and I said I didn't know anybody really did that kind of stuff. So we started going. We started our own group, and it's been about 18 years now.
That is fascinating. 18 years. I think I told you people on the first podcast here from the Whispers Estate that I've only been doing this about 8 years. So you folks have me doubled up and then some. And just by looking at the three of you, I think I maybe have all three of you doubled up in age. So how about that? Now, Missy, the agreement was we would go with the triangle, and you're at the top of that triangle. It's pointing to you. Would you like to share with everyone how you, as a person, got interested in the paranormal itself?
I always been interested in it, and then my best friend Joe talked about going to the French Lake Resort Hotel. There's a room that's haunted there. And then she was in this group, and then she took me on my first hunt, and I've been hooked ever since.
Okay, so Jolynn, that kind of points back to you. It looks like you might be the instigator here with this group and probably the person that got everyone involved with this initially. Would you like to share with us? I think before we started this, you were sharing a pretty fascinating story with me going all the way back to your childhood. But would you like to share with us how you initially got interested in the paranormal?
Sure. When I was growing up, before we moved to Mitchell, we lived in a big house in Bedford, and I was 4 before I turned 5. And we had a playroom upstairs, and my sisters and I would be up there playing, and I can remember the lights turning off and coming back on, and at some point, when the lights had went off and come back on, there were cartoon drawings on the wall, and it was Peanuts cartoons. Well, I was, like I said, probably about 4, and my sisters are just a little bit older than I am, and none of us have any drawing abilities. And my birth mom always said that we had a ghost. His name was Henry. He used to hide car keys. He used to rearrange the dishes, and it's stuck with me always.
That's a great story, and it almost sounds like the beginning of a really good scary movie. We might have to write that one down and give that to some of the writers in Hollywood, because I think most of the time scary movies now are so predictable and laughable that I don't even enjoy about 2/3 of them. But wow, what a profound moment to be that young and remember that vividly. That is just so scary. And obviously that is just probably what have led you down this path where you've spent, as it looks now, 18 years, a good part of your adult life in pursuit of this as an investigator.
We actually, a friend of mine, Mary, and I used to go when we were in high school. We would sneak across fences and into old abandoned houses, and we've done it for a very long time.
That is just great. So you're the brave one of the group then?
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Awesome. Scott, buddy, I think I had shared with you, I would like to ask all three of you how you initially came to know about the Whispers Estate here in Mitchell, Indiana. Can you go back that far and tell us about the first time you heard about the house, how you became associated with it, where you were actually interacting with its one of the previous owners, and how you yourself, came to be someone who was pretty much a regular presence here at the house?
We were out on a ghost hunt one night with George Hall, and he had been in contact with Jarrett at some point. And George brought us over and introduced us, and I think we ended up going with us that night. Jarrett did. And anyway, and I have no idea how many times we've been here before after that, but
We've been here at least 3 times.
it's probably more than that.
I don't know. That's all I remember.
Well, they can all blend together. I'd lost track long before I bought the house. I'd guessed I'd probably been to the house about 35 or 40 times, but now I'm sure it's probably in the hundreds. So it's easy to kind of lose track of how many times you visit the house. Now, Missy, I'm assuming you first heard about the house from Scott and Jolynn here?
Yes, they just asked me who was going to come and investigate. That's when Jared was here. And it was very exciting because they told me, all about it. So.
Okay, and so Jolynn, on your end, is kind of maybe the one who seems to be, maybe the one who plans and, might lead the group at times. When you decided to come to Whispers, was it originally just an investigatory? Did I say it right? As an investigator, it's a little easier to say tonight. It's getting kind of late. Was it your initial idea to come here as an investigator? Because I'm now told that you and I think Missy, both of you, even did some time researching the house, going back and trying to find a little bit about the historical aspects of the house.
Yeah, we came to investigate, and we wanted to get as much of the backstory as possible. So we spent a lot of time at the Mitchell Library and at the Historical Society in Bedford, reading up and finding everything we could get our hands on. We spent quite a while doing that.
A whole day.
Hours.
Maybe 2 days.
I think it was 2, yeah. And we just learned some things about the doctor and Jesse. And we came back. We were with IGT first, Indiana Ghost Trackers, many years ago.
Right, yes, I remember that group.
And then we split from them, and we're with another group with our friend Mary, and we did a Christmas party here. And I actually brought our new baby with us. She was less than 2 months old the first time she came. So we've been here quite a few times, I think.
Well, Whispers itself is a very special place to be at any time, but at Christmas with all the stories that go behind I should say, that accompany the house itself, that particularly some of the tragedies happen around Christmas. It always, when you're here at Christmas, it always does have a certain feel to it if you're one of those people that can go by feelings there. Scott, I'm going to go back to you. Now, I think some of my listeners had asked me to ask you people, as you know, some of the earlier people here, can you go back and maybe explain some of the more interesting or maybe one of the most memorable events that might have occurred while you were here at the Whisper State, whether you're investigating or just, hanging out here in general? One of those things that kind of, like a flashbulb memory, you'll probably never forget it. 10, 20 years from now, you probably remember it vividly.
We were in the living room doing EVP, and we had jacks get thrown across the room. I mean, they were hard enough they left marks in the wallpaper when they hit. And some people thought that the previous owner may have had something to do with it, but I had night vision goggles. I was watching him the whole time. He never moved.
So you personally witnessed, even wearing night vision goggles, like little ball and jacks flying across the room with such force, like you said, they actually even put marks inside the wallpaper. That's, I personally would say that I don't go into a lot of detail about things that I've seen here at the house or experienced, but I think I was telling you people when you first got here, we were talking about that event where I had brought some students and we had a jack fly off the table, got it on camera, no one near the table, and flew off the table and actually hit one of the students upside the leg, which startled her greatly. She wasn't injured, of course, but it was certainly a startling moment for her. If you, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we even put that on our website. If you want to go look at some of our videos there, it's, I invite anyone to try to debunk it because much like you, Scott, you saw it, them things flying, and clearly no one with the night goggle visions, no one could have been throwing them. You would have seen them doing that, right? I'm sorry.
We even tried to debunk it, and there's just no way.
Okay, so Missy, on your end, as someone who's been involved with this group for years yourself and been to the house numerous times, do you have that event, something that has occurred that sticks in your mind as you were here investigating the house?
I got my very first EVP here, and we couldn't make out what it said, but it was a really long conversation. I mean, a long sentence. And then we were all sitting down here in the parlor, and we can hear like children footsteps running back and forth down the hallway. And we were all down here. So, and like my EVP, the rest of the people were all here in the dining room. I was in the parlor with another girl. So there was no way it could be anybody, talking in the background or anything, because it was just this extinct voice. So, yeah.
That is great. One of my favorite things to do when I am investigating is try to record and capture, unidentified voices, electro voice phenomenon, I think was what EVP stands for.
Yeah.
I'm just so lazy. I probably have about 300 hours of recordings of all these places I've been. And I do have a friend, Barb Fannin. Barb, I'm sure you'll be listening later tonight, who she will sit tirelessly for hours and hours and catch these things. She's probably caught at least 25 or probably even more EVPs for me. And she's just such an expert at it. She just loves doing this. And I'm so thankful to have her as someone willing to help me out with that, because some of that stuff might just be gone forever. Now, Jolene, on your end, I think you were mentioning earlier about being in the house and being pregnant. Am I right? Is that something, or is that your most profound moment? But like I said, if you have one or two, you certainly can explain those as well.
It was actually, I had our very young daughter with us. She was less than 2 months old. And I was sitting, Scott took my story. I was sitting in a rocking chair in the front parlor, and the jack was thrown at me, and it went over my head, and I was very mad because I was holding my baby.
Of course, yes.
And he, tells me later he had the night vision goggles on, nobody moved, and that's the thing that sticks in my head the most.
Great. The fourth question I had prepared for you people, I did want to go around and ask each of you, that what, and I told you before our podcast started, I try to, keep it as clean as I can here, but I got this term from Sandra, our house manager, and I use it, and I guess it's the only word I'll use that probably isn't on the up and up, but it's not too bad of a word, but I'm going to go ahead and use it because Sandra gave it to me, and I even use it around my students sometimes. I want to ask each of you, whether it was here at the Whispers Estate or in your 18 years as investigators, no matter where it happened, I know our listeners would love to hear, because we all like to hear about each person's experience in this matter. Scott, can you tell us what we call that one oh shit moment was? Have you had that moment as an investigator?
Yeah. We were in Terre Haute, a house across the highway from Highland Lawn, investigating the house. The owner and his best friend got out a Ouija board, and it started to spell something, and when they realized what it was spelling, they stopped. Well, another friend of ours was sitting beside me with his voice recorder. He rewound it. There was an EVP that said the exact same thing that the board was spelling, and it said rotten hell. We had a girl that had been going for a few years, and she got up and picked up her purse, walked out, and never came back.
Well, I guess anytime you're talking about the Ouija board, and I know the Ouija board gets what I probably personally feel maybe is a bad rap in regards to communication device, but I have heard so many people have similar stories when they're indeed messing with the Ouija board, things that have happened that, you can't debunk it. They're frightening. And that sincerely, to have the EVP collaborating with the board was actually spelling. I mean, that is just scary. That really is. That is just one of those moments. I think that certainly qualifies. Missy, does one come to your mind easily and off the hand?
We were at a friend's house in Shoals, Indiana, and we went down over the hill, and we were all sitting on this rock, and we were doing an EVP, and so I just said, man, I hurt, and the lady that was actually, running the EVP said, explain it, where at? And before I can say where it was at, we got in a voice that was plain as day, and it sounded back here. And you can actually hear back here. So then afterwards, of course, I said I had a pain in my back. So we went up the hill, and I was listening to it. And when I heard that, I just absolutely just dropped my voice recorder, because it was just so creepy that it was right behind me and said that. So I'll never forget that.
Well, I would never forget that one either.
I mean, usually you can't understand. You have to listen over and over. This was plain as day.
Yeah, I mean, I find that so amazing. And I know I have friends and even family members that, when I tell them that I go out and do this and go to various places, they just think I'm just completely crazy, insane. They say, what is wrong with you? Why would you want to do that? I tell them it's just such a, it's such a passion of mine now. Mainly it's just the unknown. I'm not sure what loops people like us into this, where sometimes we're just visibly frightened, we're shaken from it, but we go back for more.
When we do our EVPs, we, even if a cough or a move or whatever, we say our name. So we know that it wasn't somebody else talking, so.
Yeah, I think the good ones are exactly like that. It's no one in your group that could possibly be saying it. You can recognize each other's voices. I kind of have an unwritten rule with people that I investigate with, whether it's here at the house or someone else, that none of us whisper, because it's pretty hard to identify a whisper. So we always just try to talk in very hushed tones, almost like being in kindergarten, inside voices, And then when you get that voice, and you can clearly, like you said, it was none of the people with you.
I mean, even if a car, goes by, we announce that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way you can, identify all forms of contamination, whether it's a car, whether it's voices from down the street. If you're, in a community like here at Whispers, we do have people that walk right out front of the house that they're talking at night. You can hear their voices. Do your best to identify and debunk all of that. But once all of that runs out, what you have here is something that just can't be explained really easily. You have a voice that shouldn't be there, especially since something seemed to be from behind you anyways.
Yeah, and then, there's a lot of skeptics out there, and if they actually come and do what we do, they'll understand it more.
I agree with you 100%. And I encourage skepticism, even if they come to my house here, or if I'm with people and we're going other places, I encourage skepticism. That's often the best way to debunk anything that could be some form of contamination. And then, as a skeptic, if something then occurs and you got to admit, well, I just don't know what that was, then I think that takes us across that line into parapsychology where, basically we admit that there are things that occur, phenomena that occur that, we cannot easily explain with science or reason, Jolene, I can tell you have several of these, and you're welcome to go into detail as many as you want. But that big moment or moments in your case, do you have a couple, one or two that come to mind?
Yeah. Mary and I had went out to a house out here in the country in Mitchell. The family that lived there, their son had been killed in Iraq. And they had moved to this farm. They had used his life insurance money to purchase the farm. He wanted to have a horse farm. So once when he passed away, that's what they did. So he had never actually been to this property, but they brought the couch that he used to sleep on all the time when he would come home. And it was in the garage because it wouldn't actually fit in the house. There was a weird half wall and so we went into the house and they showed us they had basically a shrine set up for him. And then they took us out to the garage, showed us the couch. The father had actually seen an apparition of the son when he was in the garage at one point. And after we left the garage, they were going to take us to show us their horses because their horses had witches' braids. If you don't know what witches' braids are, look them up. It's a weird way that the horse's hair gets twisted, and it's a legend, myth, whatever, that witches do it to the horses in the middle of the night. So they were taking us to show us that. We walked up the hill and in the front of the house, and in like the space of 3 seconds, I was fine, and then I was bawling so hard I couldn't talk. I had absolutely no idea why. I didn't know what was going on, but I was just bawling. Tried to get a hold of myself. We kept walking, and they're like, "Oh, you okay? You okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. I can't breathe very well. My back hurts. I just feel weird." The girl who I was with, Mary, she said, "Do you not know what's going on?" I said, "I have no idea what's going on." She said, "Well, I'll talk to you about it later." Okay. So we get out to the barn. I calmed down. I was fine. Later, when we separated from the people we were with, we were still out in the field. And she said, "Do you not know what happened?" I said, "I have no idea what happened." I was freaked out. And she said, "Do you remember how the son passed away?" And I said, "No, I didn't really. I wasn't that far into it." And she said, "He was hit in the back by a very large vehicle. His back hurt. He was crushed to death." He was just so strong there that I felt it. And it was the biggest experience I've had to date ever. It was amazing because when I was coming back across the yard the second time, same thing. And at the point in the yard where it was, I was in front of the flagpole that they had put up in his memory. And that is the point where I had started crying and I had no idea. Makes me want to cry now.
Yeah, so clearly, I think with your childhood experiences and then something like that, have you considered the fact that you probably, have some type of empath skills, or, there's certainly some type of psychic thing going on with you to be able to sense that? Because I joke with people that I do this with and even guess that I'm somewhat dull to that. One of my jokes is Casper, the friendly ghost, could probably sit on my lap and I might not even be aware of it. But I am fascinated by people who do get feelings and emotions like that. That is just one of the most powerful things I see. And I can see you're almost getting emotional about it now. So it's a very real, vivid memory. And that is just an awesome story. Do you have another one? I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I know you've been doing this so long. Do you have something else you could share with us?
I do. It was when we were at Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville. There were, I don't even know how many of us were there, but there were quite a few of us in our little group. And I was pregnant at the time, and I had wanted to go when I was pregnant because of the story of the nurse who supposedly had killed herself because she had gotten pregnant. She was not wed, and it had
room 502.
Right. And she, had supposedly hung herself because she was pregnant. And, we went up to the room. I didn't get anything there. And this was before what the first story I just told that happened before. We had been walking around, and it was creepy. It was Waverly, but we didn't really get any evidence per se. And then the next meeting we came to, the girl who I had been standing with the whole time, she had been using an older style of video camera, and she was using it as a flashlight. So she was, just panning everywhere. And we had looked into the employee's locker room. We just kind of glanced in there and then moved on. When she played it back, and we all saw this, when she played it back, you can see a face. This man, you could see the wrinkles. I mean, you could see his face, but you could see through him. And it was like he was peering into the camera like, what are you doing? And then it was like he just stepped back and just dissolved. That was one of the coolest things I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, when you get video evidence, that's just as good as the EVPs and the audio. When you get all that, any type of evidence is exciting to people who do this like we do. But anytime you get video or pictures, it's just so much fun to find that stuff.
Didn't George get like a jelly man?
Yeah, that was before. That was when he had went by himself before, or with a different group.
He calls it a jelly man.
Well, Waverly is just one of those amazing places, and like I said, I've been there so many times now. I think I've lost count. My son tries to correct me. He said, "No, you haven't been that many times," but I'm pretty sure I've been quite a few times. And it's one of those places. Just the moment you pull around that curve, and there this massive structure is, the physical imposing the way the building's just so imposing, just sitting there, and knowing that by most accounts at least 17,000 people died of tuberculosis there in a a 10, 12-year period. It's just a very, very powerful place.
Well, it's creepy as stuff that's going down the death tunnel.
Yeah, the death tunnel is it's got to be on
the name of it.
Yeah, it's got to be on everyone's bucket list. And that kind of gets me to my last question. This is kind of improvisation here, because I hadn't shared this with you, but as we were talking before we started the podcast, I was unaware that you people have been to so many really neat places. That some of these places are on my bucket list right now, and I've been to over 30 places, but some of these places I'm just so fascinated you guys have been able to go there. So Scott, on your end, did you said you were able to go to the Bell Witch? Was you involved with that group that went there?
Yeah, we went to a house that was on the Bell Witch property. We went to the museum. I can't remember the guy's name that ran the museum. He took us to the original Bell farm site, the cabins, and we went to the cave, but the cave tours weren't open that day.
No, we weren't allowed to go in.
Okay, so that place is like, for most people who are, involved in paranormal investigation, I think that's the story behind that going back nearly 200 years. That's just one of those places that at some point, I think all of us want to visit. So I'm a little envious of you. Well, let's just be honest. I'm very envious of you. You got to go there. Missy, did you tell me earlier that you got to go to Bobby Mack's?
Yes.
Okay, and you said you guys went to the basement, or what?
Yes.
You said there was a part of it that felt pretty weird to you.
The basement just felt really weird, but it was hard to get do any kind of EVPs or anything because it was just hot that day and the furnace was. You just can hear it. It was just. But anyways, and then there's something supposed to be in a stairway, and
It was the big hole in the basement.
no, I'm talking about upstairs too.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Anyways, I seen something there, but
Oh, yes, I do. Okay.
Yeah, Bobby Mack's is also one of those places that so many people have in their bucket list. And, like I said, I've got probably at least a dozen places that, I think about, but both of those places are destinations that have been on my mind now for about 3 or 4 years. And Jolene, to end up here with you, do you have a place that maybe might not be so well known that sticks out in your mind that maybe everyone listening should probably put on their bucket list and say, hey, listen, this is a place I need to go check out?
I can't really think of anything, honestly, that is open to the public.
Okay, so you're sneaking in there, right? Well, okay, and sometimes that's necessary. I've snuck into a few places myself, but does one stick out? Do you feel comfortable identifying it? I don't think you have anything to worry about now.
We didn't sneak in, but the place has since been sold.
Okay.
But it was an old farmhouse in Salem, out in the country.
Out in Salem, Indiana. Mm-hmm. Okay, just south of here.
And we have been there countless times. And in the back bedroom, it was always, we would set up the flashlights, with barely on, so that if there was any vibration, it would come on. We had, was it a seismograph that was sitting right beside it, so that we would know if it was anybody walking around, whatever. And we have had questions answered with the flashlight on multiple occasions. We've been in there and the whole room would just get dark. And just, sometimes it feels very oppressive. The last time we were there were 3 of us in a triangle, maybe there were 4 of us, and we heard a growl, audible, and it was none of us. The first time we were there, it told me to, get my ass up? I was sitting at a table looking through pictures because the owners of the farm were there with us and had pictures from when they had grown up there. And I was looking through, and we heard later that it told me to get my ass up whenever we were listening to the EVP back. We have been there multiple times, and it is
shut off and on.
Yeah, and it is honestly the scariest place I've ever been.
Now, probably 2/3 of my listeners now are probably going to comb that county looking for a farmhouse that's been recently sold and bought by someone, hoping to get in there. That just sounds great. And, once again, for people like us, it's really tantalizing when the place is active, there's things that occur, and you don't have access to it. It's enough to make you crawl under a fence or sneak into an old abandoned house that somebody owns, a property that's clearly marked private property, no trespassing, that good thing there. But while that is great, and once again, these people who bought the house probably are living there and have no plans or idea that they're going to ever make this any type of an attraction that people like us could go visit. That is great. Yes,
it should be.
We could have went there anytime we wanted,
and we went multiple times.
Because you don't get something every time you go. You have to go multiple times,
Yes,
but there we
There
would get
is
stuff
every
every
time.
time.
Oh, that is just great. That is great. When we end this podcast, I'm going to find out exactly where that is, but we won't do that on the air here. That we won't go that far. Well, I won't put Joanne and Scott and Missy in that position here. I guess the last thing I would like to close up here. Do you guys have any kind of advice to people who might just be starting out in this? Every now and then, well, not every now and then, often the people who visit the Whispers Estate are people who are just getting started. Often this is their very first visit to a location that does have paranormal activity. Do either or three of you or just one of you want to share? Is there any advice you can give to the novice person who is wanting to get involved with this, who might hear this and be able to get some words of wisdom from people who've been doing this now for 18 years? That's such an impressive amount of time.
Just take everything with a grain of salt until you see it yourself or hear it yourself and know for sure. We've seen lots of pictures and different things from other people, and you can't believe it unless you were there. So trust yourself.
And to make sure it's people you trust that you go with.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is worse to spend money and travel and get with people who aren't serious about this and might try to scare each other and sneak up behind each other and touch someone on the shoulder. That is just, I've been, unfortunately, I'm glad you said that, Scott. I've been with a couple of groups where they seem to delight in scaring each other. And boy, that is just frustrating for me because, as I said on the first podcast, after several years, this starts to take a toll on the pocketbook and the time involved. If you're going to do this, that's great advice. I would always recommend you get with people that are as serious as you are, because once again, who wants to waste their time? You can wait till Halloween and go into a fake haunted house and have someone jump behind the door and scare you, right?
Absolutely.
What's the cemetery we used to go to in Bloomington?
Step
Yeah.
Cemetery, yes.
That is very.
Yeah, I had mentioned my friend Brad Martin earlier. He and I, a couple of summers ago, we took his ghost box out there to Step Cemetery, and we actually got a couple of profound responses on the ghost box. And then a park ranger come up and chased us off because we were there after 11 o'clock.
Well, it used to not be like that. We used to be able to spend all night there.
Well,
and then we had one where a park ranger came up and took us to a different cemetery.
Yeah.
A hidden one, even an older one, maybe? That's fascinating.
It was really neat.
Well, I am so appreciative that all three of you, Scott, Jolene, and Missy, were willing to give us your time tonight. I've been looking forward to talking to you now for several months. Scott and I have been in communication, and he showed great patience. We had planned this, and I had to cancel, and then we planned it, and I had to cancel again. And I appreciate so much for you guys giving us your time and sharing with us your experiences and your expertise.
I highly recommend coming to this place.
Well, I do appreciate that. The Whispers Estate is.
We have never had a dull moment, or we always got something.
Yeah, it's near and dear to me, not only as the person who is the current owner. I really am probably more the caretaker than I am the owner. This house will be here long after I am gone. But as the person who is at least right now running the place with the help of my site manager, Sandra Burris, who without Sandra's help, there's no way I could be doing anything that we're doing right now with the house. But
I'll tell you one more thing. We had somebody actually spend the night here, but was in our group, and it was upstairs in the Rachel's room, they say, and they can actually feel somebody sitting at the end of the bed.
Well, that's a much braver person than me that would go up there and sleep by themselves. But we do hear those stories here where people are lying on one of the beds and something, or someone sits down by them or lays down by them. Yeah, this house is, it never seems to disappoint most people who come. And I do appreciate those kind words, Missy. That's very nice of you. Once again, I am Rich Ballard, and this was our second podcast. And I went all the way back and grabbed some people that just been awesome tonight and have been kind enough to give me their time and share their very early experiences here with the house. Our next podcast, unofficially, will be here in about 2 weeks. I'm thinking about 2 weeks from tonight. It's usually probably going to be on a Wednesday night. And my next guests are going to be the resident, what I call Whispers Estate experts, Sandra and Gwen. And if you visited the house, you know these ladies. They have spent more time here than anyone I know, and probably have had more stories and more experiences here also than anyone I know as well. And I am 100% that this next one we will go out live. I do have a phone number for listeners who are wanting to call in and ask us questions. I know I have about 78 people who had messaged me over the last couple of days who are very disappointed because they wanted to ask Scott, Jolene, and Missy some questions tonight.
We'll be happy to come back.
And I was just getting ready to say that. I would just love the opportunity to get you guys back in here. I think we just scratched the surface with you people. It seems like the more I talk to you, the more you think, oh, and I remember this happened. Oh, do you remember this place? And once again, this is an age. Like I said, I'm probably quite a bit older than these people, but what this is just 18 years of experience. And you just, once you start doing this, how things just, oh, I remember that happened. I remember that happened. And I would love the opportunity to get you back in here because I know for a fact I have a bunch of people who'd love to ask you some questions. Okay. And remember, this will be posted a little bit later tonight. I'm shooting for 10 o'clock. It will be on our YouTube page and it will be on our website, www.whispersestate.com, and of course our Whispers Estate Facebook site. So Scott, Jolene, Missy, thank you so very, very much.
Thank
I do
you.
appreciate you showing up with us tonight. You guys were just awesome. And everyone, we hope to see you in a couple weeks.